go back to the aftermath of the second show. I know that when we last spoke, I had just told the NWA to fuck off, and then we almost died in the car crash.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to dial back and re-examine how you and I both felt about Wired for War. As we're mopping and sweeping and picking up beer cans, we were typically analyzing everything that we had just seen and experienced and trying to figure out how we could fine-tune it and make it better.
Yeah.
What was your impression of Wired for War?
I can't recall day of or night of, but I remember the first few shows just being incredibly happy and this weird afterglow, right? After the shows.
Everybody else went off to Kirby Lane to go eat with Brandon Stroud and pat him on the ass, and meanwhile we were back here fucking mopping up. Did you vomit before this show?
I think that was later on.
Okay, because I remember
there was a show I did vomit before.
There were several shows you vomited because you were nervous.
Yeah, no, I was still nervous before each and every one of these.
I was happy with the show overall, except with the intro. It didn't quite flow like I wanted it to.
Yeah,
but I was pleased with it. The crowd seemed very happy. The number of folks that came through the door was larger than the first show. Yeah. I was happy with that. I was happy to see growth. We could have plateaued right out of the gate. Yeah,
and the work was amazing. The work rate was great.
That's one thing I have to say is that, as a booker, I can take credit for kind of building the car, but it's the people behind the wheel that really drive it and make the moments special. And I felt like we were getting a quality of work from the people that were with us that really made everything live and breathe. They were really obviously intrinsic to the success of everything.
Yeah, and I think this show helps point our house style in a direction that it ultimately ends up in.
Yeah. Which was bonkers.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Young guys just going, all out.
Absolutely. Yep. So here we are at show 3, The Quick and the Dead.
Yeah. We ain't dead.
No.
Yeah, so again, a jump in attendance. This was around 260.
Yeah.
So positive growth, right?
Yep. There was always I remember, whenever the shows would begin, I would walk out to see how the line was forming, and I remember being like, holy shit, there are people outside. I'd always be terrified until I actually saw the seats filling up.
Yeah, this was, holy shit, not only are there people outside, but holy shit, look how far the line goes, right? How far back it goes, how many people are waiting to get in. I think this was where we started to have to delay the start of the show to get everybody
processed and in the door.
Which now is just almost a given, right? But,
Yeah, and of course, I think this was also... It felt like as we continued down our path, more and more people were contacting us about being a part of the shows. People that initially ignored us, people who were very cagey about being involved in another Austin promotion, people who were basically like hanging back to see if we were going to sink or swim, began to, leave drippy footsteps in our direction.
Yeah, this was we definitely started having the, 5 or 6 a day messages in our damn, our social media asking where to send their tape to, who to talk to about getting booked, all that fun stuff.
And of course, one thing that this also marks is that while we had a fly-in guest on our first venture, we were still using largely Texas talent, and I think a lot of it was just the fact that people were right out of the gate kind of able to follow angles.
Yes. Yeah. And it helped out, right?
Yeah.
So let's jump into the card, but the first thing that you'll notice on this card is that one Lex Libran has taken over the camera duties on this show.
Yeah.
And it's jarring. If I would say if you're looking for a jumping in point, not because of quality of the first two shows, but because of the quality of the video, jump in at show 3, and I'll put up the video quality of anything from that point forward up against just about anything else.
We had met Librand through Stroud, actually, so
Yeah.
there was some positive stuff that came about that. At least he brought Lex into the fold, and I don't even know what he wants to be referred to as. Philip?
He's getting Lex.
Yeah, whatever.
We've already,
yeah. Anyway, he came in and right out of the gate elevated our media and our presentation to something that I really wanted it to be, and he had a lot of really great ideas. He's a great filmmaker, and he turns very, very minimal technology into stuff that looks pretty big.
Yeah. The show looks like it's a Western. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's just a very quick glimpse at part of the universe building that we have going on. There is a book sale going on with Paige Turner. Now, I don't know if the book sale was your idea or not.
The book fair idea was actually Brandon's idea, but it kind of played upon what I really like doing at the shows, which was having, like, for example, Sistine in the audience, or depression for a lot of the shows was not in the locker room. Great Depression would actually wander around the crowd and kind of mug on people. There were always things occurring outside of the ring during the shows that made it feel like you were really in this bubble.
Yeah, and this was really the start of Depression out in the crowd, because Penny Arcade, she was on tour during this show.
Yes, she was in a band called Crooked Bangs, and Crooked Bangs were on tour, so she was not available for this date.
So
Depression acts very lost without her.
Yeah, so he's just kind of wandering around the crowd. He stumbles upon the book fair, but we'll get to that. Paige Turner was somebody that Stroud had seen in Dallas, was extremely green at the time. I think that's fair to say. I think we have some creative things to do with her while she continued her training. But this is kind of your first introduction to that character.
This is also the some of the first women's matches that we produced.
We're hinting towards it here.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, we're moving toward introducing female characters to build up toward having some women's matches.
Yeah. Let's dive into because this show we're gonna have another instance of it. So at this point, Stroud has pitched that he wants to start his own promotion. He wants to start up at it's the birds. Max has birds.
Sorry, guys.
So Stroud has pitched that he would like to start a women's promotion, or a women's focused promotion.
But it was supposed to be kind of built on our brand.
Yeah, it would be like a sister promotion, right? It would be very similar in my mind to Shimmer compared to Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Was how I viewed it. So we were going to start introducing some female talent that could be used on that show. Now, his pitch was that he was going to do a GoFundMe, which was how he had funded the movie that he had produced.
With Philip. Yeah.
Phil. And that was going to pay for this. It was going to get it up and running. And then he would be more than happy to pay for women to be on the Inspire Proper show, which was a term that fucking used to make my skin crawl.
The one thing I need to also break in with is that Biss has a lot more insight regarding Brandon's grand aspirations and how a lot of the women's stuff was booked, because I was kind of shut out of that shit. But
when it would be brought to me, it was, yeah, me and Max talked about this, or me and Max talked about that.
But Brandon and I would never talk. I mean, like, he'd kind of go, oh, this is what I'm going to do. It was never like, what do you think? There was no real collaboration. And in fact, I was not super high on a lot of the ideas. I think the Depression and Page Turner thing was, it was fun, but it kind of drove the character in a direction that I was not entirely happy with.
Yeah, so it was presented, both sides got a different story. It was this collaboration, which in hindsight is just insane when we look back and we think about conversations. But, in the moment, you're not thinking that way. You're just taking things that you're not aware that you're pretty much being fucking manipulated. Yeah, so that sort of begins on this show. We start to try to plant seeds to help. That's helped us out, and we'll get into where that goes. But so when I say that we have a Page Turner promo, this is so we've gotten away from opening with the big long promo here, and we start off Troll versus Rain or Shine.
Yeah.
And Rain or Shine was a tag team that came in the space where I had left Anarchy in our first show. They were doing shows kind of in the San Antonio area, out in the smaller Houston. And then there was a little show in like Taylor, Texas, which is about an hour out of Austin, that they were on each one of that a small group of fans had started going to. I went out and saw them on one of those and kind of fell in love with the team. So, and the team, it's Alex Rains and Moonshine Mantel. So this is our first look at Moonshine Mantel.
Yeah, it's and they are very, very much in the vein of good old Texas boys. That's really the gimmick, And they would later go on to be a part of a statewide stable known as the True Sons of Texas, I believe.
Yeah, the Sons of Texas, or the True Sons of Texas. A few variations of it.
Yeah.
So in my mind, what I really wanted to do was to have Rain or Shine as this very southern team do something with the Dagger Brothers, because I thought both looked like real tag teams, and I thought that something could be done there. So for reasons that we'll get into later on this card, that never came to fruition. But what did, Rain or Shine defeated the Pump Patrol. And afterwards, Houston Carson made his debut with Inspire Pro. And Max had talked about guys that had, maybe been lukewarm on working with us before. All of a sudden, we're very excited to work with us. I think this was on the trip in Cyprus. Houston came up to me after quoting me a price that I was not interested in meeting. Came up and, yeah, brother, like, why is it that we're not working together, man? Like, we've always worked together. And I was like, I think I just bluntly told him, well, you asked for this and I can't afford it, man. And I don't think that we came to my price. I don't think that we came to his original price, but we came up with a deal that made both of us happy, and Houston Carson makes his debut in Inspire Pro.
And he makes it against a guy by the name of Scotty Santiago.
But the crowd's not going to know that for a while, right?
No. But he was Scotty in ACW. People who went to those shows were familiar with him, but it was very clear at this point that a lot of the people that were coming to our shows were not familiar with the Anarchy product.
Yeah.
In fact, at this point, our shows are essentially, numbers wise, in terms of the people attending, it's a different crowd, and it's a larger crowd. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, we've
surpassed.
Yeah, we got that pretty far, pretty close out of the gate, right? So we have the folks that either have never seen wrestling locally until they've come to our show. We also have a group that has stopped attending Anarchy shows.
Yeah.
Who's now at our shows. And then we have the crossover crowd. So it's kind of becoming its own little group. So it is Scotty over Carson at this point. Yeah, we do it's the 1, 2, 3 kid kind of finish, right?
Yeah, we had intended to do a program from here where, Scotty gets over on Carson, and Carson is an arrogant jerk, and that leads to his ultimate downfall. But since no one really recognizes Scotty, because this is like, his debut match, people begin to chant that guy when he gets over. Yeah,
so part of Carson's deal is he gets on the mic, and this is one of Max's lines, but it's delivered amazingly by Houston as well. Is he comes in and he basically says everything before this match is the pre-show, like now Inspire Pro actually starts, which is a great like cocky heel line. And they go to announce Scotty, and Carson just grabs the mic and goes, "Don't even waste your time. Everyone's got to start somewhere." And so he's never actually announced to the crowd. So they just dub him that guy, and that guy mania just becomes this crazy organic thing.
Yeah. But that was a great moment just to hear that whole crowd kind of organically jumping into that moment and as a unit chanting that guy, and that of course became a thing. And I think that even actually carried over to the other promotions.
Did it?
Surprisingly.
Yeah. I'll take your word for it. I was checked out of other promotions by that point.
Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, my scouting trips had gone way down by this point.
Well, I think
various reasons.
I think one of the things that's really interesting is that since I started running a company, my consumption of outside wrestling really dwindled because I think there was that odd mental fatigue. It's like all I really had time to do was this, and of course I had my other real life endeavors, But anyway, continuing on.
Yeah, the other cool part of this is that we join Rain and Shine with Houston Carson, and they become, is this World Class Syndicate?
Yeah, World Class Syndicate.
Yeah. So we have a stable, we have a trio with those guys, which will be very beneficial. And I'm not sure if we had the news here or not, but we'll get into that. Give me about 2 matches. So from there, we go into Cherry Ramon versus Alexander Rudolph. And halfway through this match, Mr. Sistine comes out with Dylan Dunbar. And they antagonize Alexander Rudolph about his
Was it just
his attire.
Dunbar?
It was just Dunbar at this point.
Okay.
So
Dunbar, now the owner of Heavy Metal Wrestling.
Yeah. DeBarge may have came out at the very end.
Yeah.
So I didn't. So as I clipped through it, I did not see DeBarge. So that may have been something that they pulled out at the very end.
Okay.
So, but basically, you have Sistine, you have Dunbar and DeBarge dressed for kill.
Dressed to kill.
Okay.
Pull the goddamn mush out of your mouth, motherfucker.
What was his real name? Donnie Brooks.
Donnie Brooks, yeah, Dylan Dunbar and Donnie Brooks, and they were kind of renowned for having flamboyant gear, and so I thought they were entertaining enough guys, and they basically bookended Mr. Sistine.
Yeah.
And Mr. Sistine, of course, is our Mr. Blackwell type wrestler. And these guys come out and begin to dog Alex Rudolph for his faux Viking attire.
Which he basically just has the Japanese young boy, black trunks, black boots attire.
Yeah, it's but it's very flavorless in like the scheme of what we're building here, So anyway.
So they come out, they distract him. This cost him his match with Cherry. He's irate. He's in a riot mood. And the Great Depression's match starts, and he gets called to the ring, but he is still distracted at the book fair.
Yeah, he's just standing at the book fair table reading a book. And at this point, Rudolph remains ringside, continuing to just throw a fit over the fact that he lost his match. So you've got Depression, they're trying to coax him, away from the book fair table. Meanwhile, Rudolph is going nuts.
Yeah, this is, I think me and you come out. So this is this is a cool little play where we're able to, people that know that we're running the company, you know, so, you know, it's a fun little deal there. And, yeah, so eventually Depression's not coming in the ring. Rudolph focuses his rage on Depression and throws him in the ring, and out comes James Claxton, who is over like bonkers at this point. The crowd really goes wild.
Yeah.
And you basically get a great Depression and James Claxton match. Depression picks up the win, but Rudolph is ringside throughout all of it. So we basically built up a big hoss battle between these three at this point.
Yeah. Rudolph just kind of injects himself into the scenario, and that creates beef. But anyway, that was just kind of, you know, a fun entanglement kind of thing. I always have these ideas of how I want things to be cross-pollinated. That's just my booking style. I love seeing things kind of like, you know, entwined. And this is one of those situations where Rudolph, who is, you know, clearly going to have an issue with Sistine at another point, loses his temper and interferes in Claxton's match. And this, of course, leads to a three-way on the next show. Yeah.
So from there, we go into Legion, which is Gregory James, Blasphemer, who is Jeffrey Gant, and JC Bravo, who is Morbius.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got this. They had when last we saw Gant, he had been abducted by Morbius and Greg James, the corpse paint killers, and they drag him out of the venue unconscious. And here we have Gant re-debuting under the corpse paint as one of these black metal maniacs. And we see the return of the NWA Rev guys as their opponents, who debuted at the first show and, you know, left a remarkable impression on...
To me, this is one of the best that Legion looks. I mean, they are a unit. They all have the paint on. They look amazing here. And then it's a very kind of spotty, high-paced match with the Rev Pro guys. So we get a really good trios match out of these two teams.
And again, with more mist.
Yeah, we get the black mist at the end.
Yeah.
So at the end of this, and this is a segment that I look back on as a communication breakdown, but kind of an angle that just didn't meet the mark of what we wanted out of it. We debuted Jessica James here. Mm-hmm. Now, I think the idea was her to come out with, but that doesn't happen. It's just regular Jessica.
What I really wanted was, well, I think there was always just pushback from Jessica to do certain things, but I really wanted her to be more like Lady Poison here. Her alter ego.
And that was definitely the pushback.
Yeah.
So I think this was a thing where I tried to get the best of both worlds, and clearer communication would have worked out a lot better. Because, she was very protective of the character. So I was trying to get a hard-edged Jessica James that could allude to Lady Poison, and the Legion directly like it's Lady Poison, which leads to like just this weird awkwardness to the entire thing. So I take some lumps on that one.
Well, there was also something that was occurring occasionally here where I would communicate something very vividly, but then certain people would have their ego kind of get in the way, and they just kind of be like, I don't need to listen to you, and go off and do their own thing. And this routinely pissed me off. I think this was kind of like that. A lot of people thought like, well, I'm just going to go out there and do my own thing. And it would always result in this weird creative disconnect where it didn't really make sense, and the crowd would be left scratching their head. And of course people would throw that in my face. But the thing is that you can't fault an angle if you didn't follow the direction you were given, you know?
Yeah. So this was definitely one of those awkward ones where what we had in mind is not what got executed.
Yeah.
And again, this is Jessica's somebody I'd worked with throughout my entire time with Anarchy and other places, and was one of the top women in the state at the time. So definitely somebody we wanted involved if we were going to do women's wrestling. Not off to the best foot though. But the match was amazing.
Match is really fun.
And Legion looked great. If you go back and you watch this match, they look like a unit. They look really good. From that, we go into the Dagger Brothers against Barrett Brown and scheduled to be Bolt Brady. Bolt had his jaw broken.
I believe
this was where Scott broke his jaw.
Yeah.
And was replaced by Sammy Guevara. Now, if you listen to the last episode, you heard our nightmare match where we went through like 20 people. One of the people that we called to replace God knows which side of that match was Sammy Guevara. And I think it was like, hey, yeah, bro, I need more than 10 days of notice or something like that, which, you know, I'm automatically like, well, who the fuck is this kid, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we're running this show 6 weeks later, and that's enough time. So he's game, and he comes in and he replaces Bolt Brady. So this is the debut of Sammy Guevara in Inspire Pro. And
immediately, you know, I when I knew that we had our you know, claws on this kid, the idea of pairing him with Barrett, it automatically just kind of makes sense that Barrett, who is a more wholesome, you know, persona, being paired with this cocky, arrogant kid, it's got to lead to friction. But also the idea of Sammy and Barrett, two, you know, really phenomenal Texas talents going at each other at a future date. I know I have to plant the seeds. You know, they don't have any legs as a tag team because this is kind of thrown together, but there's a synergy there. It makes sense, and it's something that I want to see personally.
So, yeah, I mean, you have these two young guys. They, of course, as is known to happen in pro wrestling, there's a communication breakdown between the two, and we have Sammy kind of beat down Barrett after the match. Bolt jumps in, the Daggers jump in to pull him off. And there we go. We're off and going with some feud between Barrett Brown and Sammy Guevara.
Yeah.
This was the last show that the Dagger Brothers worked for us. I think it's one of the last shows that they worked. So Kevin actually developed a heart condition and had to retire from wrestling. So that kind of it would have put in a big blow to us, but luckily we were able to pivot very quickly to the World Class Syndicate stuff you'll hear over the next couple of episodes.
Yeah.
So that was incredibly beneficial.
And I was very excited about the World Class Syndicate in name as well. I was very proud of that stable. I was really excited. Not everybody that was involved in it was very excited. But I guess we'll get to that at a later date.
Yeah. Yeah, because that stuff came off great throughout the first couple of shows.
Yeah, absolutely. But there was a lot of resistance. And in fact, I don't remember which event it was at, but I remember Claxton being upset about not being in a stable with other stablemates that he had at other places. There was a lot of people pushing me to carry continuity that was going on in other companies throughout Texas. But, you know, the thing is that if you want to go see that shit, go to the other dozen shows where that shit happens. I wanted Inspire to be a place where you could only see what we were doing there. That's what makes it unique, and that's going to make people want to actually come to our shows. If we're doing something great, I didn't want to whore it out, and I certainly didn't want to ape what a bunch of other companies were doing. And, you know, not be able to control what we did. I always felt like whenever we featured something, like there was some sort of crossover, people from whatever well that the angle sprung from, for example, Ray Rowe and Showtime, you know, we had to really honor that continuity and honor that company, and we couldn't do what we really wanted to do. So, you know, I really wanted to have all of our stuff be original, and therefore we could control our own content.
Yeah, that was the weird. Wow, that's as high as I've ever gotten. That was sort of the weird crossroads for me, right? At my basic psychology in wrestling is, you know, if a character's one way here, that should be the character, right? And I would actually tell guys that I advised, hey, stay true to your character, cross your bookings. But at the same time, as a promoter now, it became very important for us to be able to control our content.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we go to other shows, and we weren't necessarily happy with the nature of the creative. So, you know, I didn't want to be obligated to do that. But also, you'd see somebody doing something and you'd go, that's off. Why would I want to be obligated to do something that's off, you know?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
I think that was pretty far down the line from this particular show. Anyway,
well, no, there were you'd see like certain people go up north to DFW area and play heel who'd be face here, and people would say, well, they were heel up there, and I'm like, I'm not trying to play to that crowd, so I don't care. And most of those people, we're not on their radar, man. This is a local show.
Yeah. Okay, so, well, speaking of up there, someone who had quite a bit of time up there got their start. JT Lamada's retirement.
Yes.
Against Andy Dalton, street fight. Match was amazing.
Wasn't this promoted, though, as like if JT lost, he'd have to leave the business or something like that? I'm pretty sure that's how it's promoted. That's probably
how it was promoted.
Yeah, and I remember... Yeah. I remember being a little sour after that because he did pop back up in ACW. I was not really aware that he had intended to finish out his career in ACW. I thought this was it. No.
He didn't pop back up in ACW here. Nope. So originally this was supposed to be his second to last match.
Okay.
He was supposed to wrestle this, and then he was supposed to have a retirement match with Jimmy Jacobs. For whatever reason, our show fell like a week after that.
Okay.
And he was like, you know what? Fuck it. I already told you I'd do it. We'll do it. So he has the match with Jimmy, and it is horrible. Mm-hmm. So, your opinions are well documented on Jimmy.
Oh, yeah.
But,
not a fan.
Yeah. Like, for whatever reason, Jimmy was not, you know.
He's not consistent.
I think he got hurt in the match, either at his fault or just wasn't in a great shape.
I'm not, I mean, like, I think at one point Jimmy was great, but at that point in time, that was not, 2008 Jimmy Jacobs, and it's really neither here nor there. I felt like he phoned it in, I had been to several events that he was at here in Texas, and I really took umbrage to the whole, like, oh, I'm going to get gay heat in front of the rednecks kind of model, and then he would play, face and ridicule everybody for being homophobic, but it's like, well, if you exploit that doesn't make you much better. So I mean, it wasn't, I saw him kind of just phone it in, and and from there, just like I said, that's neither here nor there. He never worked for a company. I didn't want to have anything to do with him, but
then this becomes another like weird Anarchy versus Inspire notch, because we end up with JT's last match, right?
Yeah.
So very much a wrestling retirement. He shows up in MPX like 2 years later, something like that, which I mean I knew was going to happen. I guess for you still believed in a pure wrestling retirement, but this was. And as I think people have to view wrestling, I didn't
view it as such. I don't have a problem if somebody retires and comes back several years later. Okay, that's not a problem that I have. My problem is that when someone retires and comes back 2 fucking weeks later, that's bullshit. And that didn't happen. But Yeah.
So anyway, I digress. We digress. JT Lamada, Andy Dalton. I got sort of flack from this from Stroud, I think, but Dalton laying down on the way out, right? Like, it's just, that's tradition to me.
No, JT laying down on the way out. Yes.
Yeah, right. Dalton up. We're elevating Dalton. Yeah, Dalton's going to be here.
This is like Dalton's first real victory here, where he becomes a perceived threat, and he sends the face packing and gets heat on top of it, but also just looks like a complete menace. And it is a brutal hardcore style match. We broke things. We made a mess in that building that night, but it was a phenomenal match, and it was like one of those matches where I was like, this is a moment. This is why I started wrestling. I want to create moments, and I want more like this. And I remember at that point thinking, I hope there are a lot more of these. Yeah,
and this was our first sort of epic match that we had built up to with 2 locals.
Yeah.
So from that we get into, Dell has qualified for the championship match.
Yeah.
And we have Dell versus Ro. Now, and this is again very, very Japanese inspired. So we have a chance here where we have Dell versus Ro. Right? We know that Dell's going to be our champion at this point. So we have the opportunity to start building challengers, right? We've already talked about some of the other things that we're working towards. So we give Ro the victory over Dell.
And the idea is that they will meet again, but Dell is obviously going in as the underdog.
Yeah. So we've got that. On top of that, we have Ricky Starks from the VIP area, reminiscent of his last show, kind of dogged Dell about losing to Ray Rowe.
Yeah.
And hey, are you going to be able to actually do it? Because later on tonight, I'm winning and you're going to have to face me, right? So we have seeds for Ricky Starks. And before Dell can respond, Robert Evans' music hits and he makes his return. And we get that nice little ships passing in the night of Robert Evans and Mike Dell.
Yeah.
So we have now planted 3 seeds for who will eventually be our champion with Mike Dell here.
Champion. I mean, challenger.
Yeah. We'll just, we've planted the crops. We just got to wait for them, right?
Yeah.
So watching this back, just phenomenal job here, right? Just with that one segment, we have 3 challengers, 3 little leaflets hanging up that we can come pull on whenever we need to.
Which is exactly what I wanted. I never want to just feeder fish. I didn't want our championship matches to not feel important or special, And we certainly did a good job of making sure that whoever came up potentially had some matches that felt important, because that's how you make a belt feel important.
So we go into Robert Evans versus Jojo Bravo.
And I have issues here with this match. Not the self.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go ahead and jump into that.
I was a huge Evans fan. He is a brilliant person, but he was also one of those people that I felt needlessly spoke down to me and didn't really ever deliver what I wanted him to, and honestly kind of didn't show me much respect. But I can understand that. I wasn't angry at him, but going into this, the idea of Evans and JoJo interacting was a really exciting proposition, and both of these 2 humans are outstanding on the mic. To me, one of the things that really captured my imagination were the moments where Evans spoke. And I remember saying that, please just give me this moment where you guys spar a little on the microphone. Give me that. Establish who you are, establish your characters. And of course, they come out and they just go right into the match and they discard any concept of doing any sort of mic work. And Evans says to me later on when I say, why didn't you guys, trade a little barbing? He said, well, people know who we are. We don't need to get into that. We didn't need to do that. And this is something that comes back to kind of haunt and frustrate me at a later date when Evans returns. Yeah. However, the match itself is phenomenal. It has the fake out injury, I believe.
Yep.
Which is a huge pop moment. Like, everybody goes nuts.
Yep.
But that match is fantastic. Again, JoJo, easily one of the best professional wrestlers in my vicinity, at least. He's great.
And he's on fire at this point, right?
Yeah. He's mega over. Yeah. He is, he's the littlest sumo in the land. And it's a great encounter that's worthy of a lot of the hype that we put into it. It was a great encounter, great match. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, and I will get Robert met with me after this match to give me some tips as far as pre-show meetings, stuff like that, and I'll always be grateful for that.
Yeah, no, he's a gifted person. He's a brilliant mind. And
So-
his advice did come into play, and we did learn from him.
Yeah.
I was always open to learning from people.
Yeah.
I just also wanted to be heard, and I didn't necessarily feel like at that point a lot of people didn't want to listen to me. I had to couch a lot of stuff through you at that point.
And I think that's actually what I wanted to kind of get on. I felt like that was the right thing to do at that time, right? We kind of can get into sort of that, right? I felt like my role was the liaison between you and the wrestlers to an extent, right?
Yeah.
But that can't work creatively, right? You have to have a direct line to them. I can be involved with that direct line, but I mean, imagine now going through a card and going through me to do it, right? That's sort of what we were doing at the time.
It put a lot of pressure on you,
Yeah.
and it's not that I was trying to, avoid responsibility. It was just that I was still that guy that had never laced up a pair of boots.
Yeah.
There was a prejudice there,
Yeah.
and it took many years for me to get out from that shadow. You know,
and I think this is a great example of where, if we had a little bit more experience, but we didn't. This is our third show, right? It would have been a direct line, and we could have addressed these. You know what? Maybe Robert still gets told, do the promo, and then goes out and decides not to, because that was the deal. He decided on his own that it was worth more to monetize the crowd waiting for him to speak. So, but that's something that should be decided amongst everybody. That's not something that he can just make that decision.
Well, what he told me was that he said everybody knows who we are. We didn't need to do that. That's what he told me.
Yeah,
but still, it was there were a lot of new people there that weren't at Anarchy when he was there who didn't know who he was, and they didn't know him from his Dallas days.
Well, and the other learning point was that we flew him in because he had moved to the East Coast at this point.
Yeah.
So I treated him like anybody else that would be flown in. You fly in, here's what you're going to do, and you do it because that's what you came in to do. Robert, because of how creative he is, has always been much more involved in his angles, so that was what he thought that was his expectation coming in. So he missed the boat there on not seeing that it was, hey, no, they're approaching it this way. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Anyway, I have nothing but respect for Evans. I think he's a wildly creative person, and pretty much anything that he's ever touched, I think, is golden.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, moving on.
So we go into and some more cracks show here. We have Jensen versus Showtime versus Starks. And at this point, you got Showtime and you got Starks, who are two of the highest performers. And I think some of Jensen's work rate shortcomings started to glare through.
Yeah. Well, I think there were a few moments where he looked a little lost.
Yeah.
That's just my perception.
So, and we have him swimming with big sharks here.
Yeah.
Right. So, Ricky Starks picks up a pinfall victory over Showtime. Not a victory, but an elimination. Gets a pinfall over Showtime Scott Summers. And then you have Jensen kind of with the dirty roll up, getting the win and going on to the title match.
Yeah, and this is a seedling for something that occurs with Scott later on. Mm-hmm. The way that the victory occurs really highlights something that we haven't touched upon. We were really adamant about there not being a lot of DQs, and if there was a DQ, it was very rare. This was very much the company. I will say that Anarchy did absolutely define one part of our aesthetic, and that was that rules mattered at this place. It was really, really important. So we wanted to make sure that stuff mattered. Like the matches needed to be very pure, and the way that that situation goes is not ultimately honorable.
Yes.
So that was a big deal, the way that Jensen went over.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a good match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, overall amazing card again. I mean, going back and watching this, man, this is like right up my alley, this show.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed revisiting this show.
It felt huge. All of our shows just felt huge. We came out swinging every show because we knew that we needed to. I think, you know what? I think also in a larger sense, we didn't know how long this was going to last, so we needed to get all our shit in.
Yeah. So this leads us into Ecstasy of Gold 1.
Yeah.
Which basically becomes our flagship event.
Yeah, it becomes our flagship event, and it also this is the show where we are crowning our first champion.
Yeah. I wasn't sure we were gonna get here.
Yeah.
But damn it, here we are.
Yeah, we did. Anyway, we'll pick back up on that show, and when we return in another week. Hope to hear you and see you and all that shit. Fuck. I'm tired.